Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak to what we think is a really great project for the District of Ucluelet. And I just want to thank everybody who did come out to our earlier meetings for giving us a hand in sorting out the design and for staff's time in collaborating on finding solutions to the land use. I'm sure you're all familiar with the location of the property. It's located just up from Big Beach between Marine Drive, Victoria Road, and Matterson Drive, adjacent to across Matterson Drive from the community center, and a short walk to the downtown core. So about 2.5 years ago, before we made an application for rezoning to the district, we met with some of the neighbors. Mailers were sent out to everyone within 50 meters of the property, and the meeting was advertised in the local newspaper. About 29 neighbors showed up to the meeting, and 13 comment sheets were submitted. Additional comments were received after that meeting, and I just thought we'd provide a brief summary of what was talked about there. So this slide just shows the image, the land use image, the concept that we provided for that initial meeting, and this was up for discussion, so nothing had been resolved at that time, but we wanted to pitch our ideas to the community and see what kind of feedback they had and what their interests were. So at the meeting, we heard pretty clearly from residents that there was an expectation that came from an earlier commercial project proposal on this site to have a 10-meter buffer along the residential portion that is adjacent to properties fronting Victoria Road. That was a clear request from the community. It was also suggested that that buffer not contain a trail and that it be used as an ecological corridor. The second concern expressed by the neighborhood was about having a single access point to the subdivision via Victoria Road. In this case, there is a perceived concern with the amount, the volume of traffic that would be pushed out onto Victoria, and we heard that loud and clear. There was a suggestion to create additional access points out to Marine Drive and Matterson Drive as well. The folks I talked to at the meeting certainly indicated a strong preference that this be primarily a residential development with attainable housing forms kind of geared towards people who would come and work and live in Ucluelet. The inclusion of accessory dwelling units, for example, carriage houses, coach houses, was a concern for about 1/3 of the folks that showed up at the meeting. And that was primarily to do with concerns about increased traffic on Victoria Drive, or Victoria Road, sorry. The proposed density was also a concern, but only to about 1/4 of those who attended. Over the past 2+ years, we've made an application to the district and have been working with staff to refine our concept and ensure that it's viable and feasible from an infrastructure standpoint. And that is what we will present to you today. We are always careful to explain that what we are showing is a high-level land use concept. So it's a proof of concept, essentially a master planning exercise to determine the land uses. Building footprints are shown diagrammatically, as is the road layout. Both of those items will be determined technical specifics and otherwise during future processes. As mentioned in the previous slide, what we are discussing today is land use, but please be aware that there are 2 future processes that are required before this thing can be constructed, and essentially that's a development permit which will authorize the layout of the subdivision and future form and character development permits for each site by each use. Another thing that will be done through subdivision is formalizing the park dedication requirements. Our revised proof of concept includes the requested 10-meter retained buffer along the backs of properties which front onto Victoria Road. That 10-meter buffer will be dedicated to the district as parkland through the subdivision process. A second 10-meter buffer is proposed along the entire length of the property adjacent to Marine Drive, and that would be applicable to the apartment site and the standard single-family lots proposed along Marine. District staff has also requested a view park / greenway between the ridge development and those single-family lots. The small lot land use is located toward the center of the site. These lots are intended to act as attainable housing. Short-term tourist accommodation, we heard from council and we heard from the community, that is no longer proposed, so there will be no tourist accommodation within the small lot component. District staff have created a new R6 infill single-family zone, and we think it's very appropriate. The zone contains lot averaging requirements, meaning that lot averages need to be below 480 square meters, and only those lots greater than 480 square meters can contain an accessory dwelling unit. So the number of lots that will contain accessory dwelling units will likely be in the range of 3 to 6. So we're not talking about a lot of accessory units. Our prime view lots, which will essentially be your standard single-family R1 residential zoning, are located along Marine Drive because they have the prime view, and so it's ideal for larger lots. Just noting again that we are providing a 10-meter setback along Marine Drive. A rental apartment site is proposed at the northwest corner of the site, and it's ideally located adjacent to the community center, within walking distance to schools and the town core, and just up from Big Beach. This is intended to be rental housing, and rental will be secured through a covenant on title in perpetuity, meaning that these cannot be strata converted in the future. We've got a maximum density of 48 units and restricted the unit size to a maximum of 825 square feet. And the idea there is by keeping the unit size small, it'll keep the rents low. And so we're not marketing this to an upscale client. It's intended for normal everyday users. As noted in earlier slides, there is a 10-meter setback along Marine Drive, which is an expanded setback to the normal R3 requirements. We are also proposing an expanded 8-meter setback along Matterson Drive as well. Minimum building separation, just for the interest of folks living on Victoria Road, will be 52 feet, and that's when you add in the park space and the setbacks on the multifamily site. The maximum building height for the apartment site is currently limited to 11 meters, which is a 3-story format. We have asked council to consider a 4-story building should we need to go to that height to retain the kind of viability and affordability of the project. If we have to go underground, these units are suddenly going to become quite expensive and the rents will be higher. Council has agreed to look at that, and detailed architectural plans are currently underway. And just to note that the only way that we can achieve 4 stories is through a variance approved by council through a subsequent development permit process. The southern portion of the site is earmarked for another multi-site. This is intended to be a townhouse development. It's an amended R3 zoning, similar to the apartment site, with a density restriction to 28 units. And just keep in mind the minimum setbacks for the entire lot are 10 meters, so 33 feet along all lot lines, meaning the minimum building separation for folks along Victoria Road, just for your information, would be about 66 feet, and that does include the park buffer. There are 4 main components to our community amenity contribution package. So the first of those is expanded parkland dedication. There is a 5% parkland dedication required at the time of subdivision. We are essentially doubling that dedication with the 10-meter park buffer along Victoria Road properties, in addition to the 1,300 square meter park greenway site adjacent to the Ridge development. The second contribution proposed through this zoning amendment is a financial contribution to the district. We are proposing $1,000 per door per unit, and that's for the primary units. Based on the 112 density we have right now on the plan, that would work out to about $112,000, and that money is to be earmarked at the discretion of the district council. We're also proposing the dedication of a single lot to the district, and that would be a serviced lot through subdivision. The estimates of value of the lots back in 2020 was 90 to 100,000. I'm sure those have increased by now. The use of that lot in the future is at the discretion of the district and council, but you know, there's some pretty obvious things like staff housing and affordable housing that would be really great for this site. District staff have indicated that guaranteeing the rental-only tenure for the apartment property should be considered an amenity, so I've just placed that in here for your reference. Keep in mind that will in perpetuity be a rental housing component for the district, so it will secure that rental housing into the future. Thank you all for your time and consideration. I just want to take a moment to thank staff for their hard work with our team over the past couple of years to get this one right. I think we have a really great package here for the district and for the ratepayers of the district of Ekluyot. I hope you feel the same way. We're not allowed to interact during a public hearing, but if there are any clarifications needed, a member of our team will step up to the mic during the hearing. Thank you again.